Congratulations everybody, you survived halfway through 2026, and as a reward for this monumental achievement, I have a special treat. A look ahead at some of the video games that are coming out in the next 6 months. Here are the biggest game releases of 2026, the Summer Update. Now before we get into it, the usual disclaimer that game release dates are about as reliable as a paper snorkel, and all of these things should be taken with a grain of salt because games get delayed or sometimes canceled out of the blue, and other times they get released with no advance notice. And also, this isn't every game coming out, but it's a lot of them, so as always, check your local listings. On July 2nd, Rhythm Heaven Groove hits Nintendo Switch, the 5th installment in the rhythm game series that hasn't been releasing new installments at a particularly fast tempo. The last one came out in 2015. There's plenty of fiction out there where vampires get romantically involved with other supernatural entities like werewolves and witches, but significantly less where vampires live agrarian lifestyles. Well, Moonlight Peaks is all the above, and that's on both Switches and PC July 7th. On July 9th, you've got your pick of a pair of games about classic summertime activities. There's Backyard Baseball, which is about a bunch of malformed homunculi engaging in the national pastime, which is coming to PC with console versions on the way. Meanwhile, you can take an extended beach vacation in Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, the current-gen do-over of Ubisoft's most flagship-centric entry in its flagship series. That's on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series. Also on July 9th is Granblue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok, which might be about some vaguely summertime activity, but I'm guessing probably not. Anyway, it's a massive expansion for Granblue Fantasy Relink, which adds a whole new area, new characters, and other things that expansion packs tend to add. That's on all the platforms that start with a P, and also Nintendo Switch 2, which doesn't start with a P. If you somehow 100% Granblue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok in under 24 hours without getting hospitalized and still find yourself hankering for more JRPG action, on the 10th there's Echoes of Aincrad on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC, a single-player adventure set in the Sword Art Online universe. On July 15th, you can do some serious baseball with realistic human adults not in a backyard in eBaseball Pro Spirit 2026 on PS5 and PC. Also on the 15th, there's the Mound, Omen of Cthulhu, a Lovecraftian survival game that can be played in co-op with up to 3 friends, and in addition to featuring plenty of vibes and iconography evocative of Mr. Howard Phillips' great old mythology, this will also have some psychological mechanics designed to mess with players' heads a la Eternal Darkness, which is pretty sick. On the 23rd, the historically turn-based RPG series Disgaea lets its hair down with the real-time action spin-off Disgaea Mayhem. Get a load of Disgaea right here, what a maniac! That's on both Switches, PS5, and PC. Also on Switch 2 that day is Splatoon Raiders, which takes the historically competitive multiplayer-focused cephalopod-centric shooter and gives it a single-player spin, which can still be played co-op with up to 3 friends. If that's too bright and colorful, great news, you've got your pick of not 1, but 2 monochromatic indie games to mess with. There's the boss rush hack and slash Gurei on Switch, PC, and PS5, as well as Helix, Descent, and Ascent, a top-down puzzle adventure on Switch and PC. If you're a fan of shmups and are pissed there hasn't been a new Truxton game in almost 35 years, well, you're probably already well aware that that changes on July 30th with the release of Truxton Extreme, which is coming to PS5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, and PC. Normally I wouldn't include this sort of game, but as a dad, I'm aware that July 31st is the point in summer break where the novelty of kids being out of school is likely wearing thin for all parties involved. So it's worth mentioning that Paw Patrol Dino World is coming to Xbox Series, both PlayStation, Switch, and PC, 2 weeks ahead of the feature film of the same name. I'm not a fan of those dogs or of pointing kids at screens to shut them up, but also I get it, we all need a break sometimes. On the 3rd, Beast of Reincarnation hits Xbox Series, PS5, and PC, which is the big, shiny AAA action RPG from Game Freak, the studio best known for making Pokemon games that don't usually look this technically impressive. This one features plenty of monsters, but the jury's out on how easily you can fit them in your pocket. On August 6th, Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls hits PS5 and PC, which is basically Marvel vs. Capcom, hold the Capcom, but it's courtesy of Arc System Works, the studio behind BlazBlue, Guilty Gear, and Dragon Ball FighterZ. They've been allowed to put their own spin on Earth's mightiest heroes and friendliest neighborhood gifted youngsters, and they're gonna let them hit each other. On August 12th, Memoirium comes to Steam, which is a roguelite Souls-like, something we have a lot of, but it's got a really cool low-poly aesthetic and takes place in a surreal dreamlike setting that blurs fantasy elements with mundane contemporary imagery. So you run around and fight monsters and stuff, but then you also have to organize your dorm room. Sure, why not? If you prefer a nightmare rooted in the worst parts of reality, Hell Let Loose Vietnam is hitting PC, Xbox Series, and PS5 on the 13th, a hardcore tactical shooter that features some gnarly sounding 50v50 matches. On August 14th, Grave Seasons is a cozy farming simulator a la Stardew Valley, lovingly drizzled with some mature elements. All of those sultry looking villagers are romance options, but one of them is also a serial killer. And you can still romance them if you know they're a serial killer, which seems odd to me. That would be a deal breaker for me. That one's on all the newer consoles and PC. On the 27th, there's Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy, which is a prequel set 15 years before A Plague Tale Requiem, featuring more action than the previous narrative stealth adventures and following a new protagonist exploring the Minotaur's Island, which last I checked was Crete. Moving from Crete to Crate, if you've ever wanted a cross between XCOM and Mass Effect that takes place in the Star Wars galaxy, well, you're in luck because that's basically what Star Wars Zero Company is shaping up to be. The bulk of the gameplay is the turn-based tactical strategy made popular by Firaxis, but in between missions you'll be getting to know your NPC squad mates better, like you would in a BioWare game. Can you kiss them? I asked the developers, and they stonewalled me. Are there romance options?
I guess you'll just have to play the game and find out.
Okay, might get weird, but we'll see. Kissing or no kissing, the whole thing takes place in the twilight of the Clone Wars, but rather than focus on the Republic and Separatist conflict, it's centered around some shady dealings in the criminal sector. Sign me up. Those last two games are on Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. Also out that day for those platforms, plus both Switches, is the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2. Most notably, this is the first time Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots will be easily legally playable on something besides a PlayStation 3. The collection also includes the HD version of Peace Walker and Ghost Babel, which debuted on the Game Boy Color, plus a ton of bonus content, but really, MGS4 is the big deal here. It is far from the best Metal Gear game, but it's still got a ton of awesome stuff in it, and it's nice we'll be able to play it on platforms that hopefully won't require you to stare at Snake smoking a cigarette for 45 minutes while the game fully installs. Though really, that's kind of part of the experience, so they should at least give you the option. Sometime in August, we are getting an official video game adaptation of Creepshow, Stephen King and George Romero's classic horror anthology film. This IP's variety pack format lends itself super well to virtually any medium, so hopefully this game delivers. That is on PC for now. September 2026 is shaping up to be as packed as October or November usually are in any other year, but everyone is giving GTA 6 as much leeway as possible, which unfortunately means comically dogpiling in the beginning of the fall. On September 3rd, there's The Blood of Dawnwalker, a big juicy action RPG to sink your teeth into, and if you're out of the loop, this looks like a cross between The Witcher and Blade. You play as Cohen, who is human by day and vampire by night, embarking on a journey through a version of 14th century Europe full of phantasmagoric creatures to slay and morally complicated choices to make. That's on PC, Xbox Series, and PS5. If you want the opposite of that, on September 3rd, there's Marsupilami 2 Salsa Colombia, a colorful 2D platformer that takes some cues from Donkey Kong Country, but stars some characters that predate DK by 30 years. These cartoon critters debuted in a Belgian comic strip in 1952, and in this age of globalized pop culture, it's always a thrill to come across some media property that's twice as old as I am that's somehow new to me. Did you know there was a live-action Marsupilami movie a few years ago? It's got Jean Reno. How am I just now learning about this made-up animal? Also out September 3rd is Orbitals, exclusively on Switch 2 and also exclusively for 2 players. This is a co-op adventure in the style of Split Fiction or It Takes Two, but with some truly gorgeous graphics that absolutely nail that specific aesthetic of bubble-era Japanese anime OVAs. I want to play this so badly, but I always bounce off of these co-op games. I'm bad enough at actually finishing games on my own time, and even worse when it involves getting somebody else to play with me because most people would rather do things that don't involve hanging out with me. Kind of a faux pas to wear white after Labor Day, but apparently nobody told Michael Myers. On September 8th, everybody's favorite pasty palette swap of William Shatner gets a new game courtesy of IllFonic. Unlike IllFonic's previous game adaptations of horror properties, which include Friday the 13th the Game, Predator Hunting Grounds, and Killer Clowns from Outer Space, this one isn't exclusively multiplayer. There will be an asymmetrical multiplayer mode, but this time around there's also a single-player campaign as well that lets you get in fighting shape as Michael Myers himself. That one's on Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. On September 15th, you can take control of another unkillable mass murderer who's been around since the 1970s, Wolverine! After quite a long wait, we'll finally get to see what a hard M-rated spin on Weapon X looks like from the studio who gave us some of the best Spider-Man games ever made, and it might not be set in a sprawling recreation of New York City or let you swing from rooftops like those games, but Insomniac clearly understood the assignment. Nuff said. Except not really, because there are still a shitload more games coming out in 2026. On September 17th, you and up to 3 friends can do more fantasy puzzle platforming in Trine 6 Together in Time on Xbox Series, PS5, both Switches, and PC. Also that day, just on PC, is Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 4. This is the first new installment in almost a decade, with Iron Harvest developer King Art Games taking over from Relic Entertainment, the studio behind the first 3. If you want to boss around much prettier, happier looking people on a much less grimdark battlefield, there's also Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave on Switch too. As anyone who plays Fire Emblem can tell you, this looks like more of what made Three Houses such a hit, or at least that's what my esteemed colleague Logan Plant says all the time, and I think he plays those games. I don't play those games, so I don't know what any of that means. My understanding of Fire Emblem is that it's like anime XCOM with extremely chaste romance options where having a tea party is the equivalent of getting to third base. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Your room is quite comfortable. I feel I could relax here for a good while.
Hey, who here likes the Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky? What if I told you there's a second chapter? Yup, that's right, and you already knew that it came out 20 years ago, and you probably also know that on September 17th, it's getting a remake on both Switches, PS5, and PC. But if you didn't know, now you know. On September 18th, LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight hits Switch 2, and a nice touch is that the physical version of the deluxe edition comes with a minifig based on the old Sunsoft Batman game for the original NES. Not so nice is that version is $90, though considering the collector aftermarket for minifigs, that could potentially pay for itself on eBay. Did you know that one specific version of a Bane minifig regularly sells for upwards of $300? It's not even like a big Bane, it's like a little Bane. If you have a box of old LEGO lying around, it might be worth looking through it to scrounge some cash for all these other video games that are coming out. On September 22nd, Dune Awakening comes to Xbox Series and PS5. If you've been hiding out in a sietch with your head in the sand for the last 2 years, this is the survival MMO from the studio behind Conan Exiles that takes place in an alternate timeline version of Frank Herbert's sci-fi epic where Paul Atreides was never born. And if the MMO aspect is a turnoff, good news because the console launch coincides with the release of an offline single-player story mode, which is also coming to PC that same day. September 24th and 25th are a huge traffic jam for game releases, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of these games decided to take a detour by delaying or moving up its release date by a week or two. Speaking of traffic jams and detours, Hot Wheels Infinite Rush looks to be essentially a continuation of the Hot Wheels Unleashed games, but rather than being set in someone's living room or backyard, it turns you loose in an island paradise overrun by orange track and weird big obstacle things. So these are either full-size cars or this is a whole 1/64th scale civilization. I don't know, man.
What is this? A center for ants?
If you'd like to explore a much more depressing and scary island a lot slower, there's also Silent Hill Townfall on PS5 and PC. This is the second brand new entry in Konami's beloved psychological survival horror series in as many years. This one's being developed by Screenburn, the studio behind a couple very well received games, Observation and Stories Untold, so that seems like it could be promising. Meanwhile, on Xbox Series, PS5, and PC, there's Control Resonant, the sequel to Remedy's 2019 physics-based adventure shooter thing, which was IGN's pick for Game of the Year. But instead of playing it safe and making another game where you shoot stuff indoors, this one swaps ranged combat for fast-paced melee in a large, openish, surreal reimagining of Manhattan. Not open world, mind you, but definitely less corridor than the oldest house was. Speaking of outdoor stuff, Harvest Moon Echoes of Terraria is another entry in Natsume's long-running Farm PG series, which looks to be trying some new things in addition to the usual business. You can explore an open world, have animal companions, and get this, you can even jump. That one's coming to both Switches, Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. If you would rather harm things than farm things, on the 25th there's Onimusha Way of the Sword. This dusts off Capcom's PS2 era action series that's been mostly dormant since 2006 with a brand new entry that features some historical figures doing battle with some mythical beasts. That's on all the newer consoles and PC. Finally, on September 29th, there's Minecraft Dungeons 2, which is a video game about Minecraft characters exploring dungeons. That's what it is. That's on PC and all the major consoles released this decade. October kicks off with a couple do-overs of games that people liked so much that somebody thought it was worth making them all over again. There's Rayman Legends Retold, which remakes the 2013 2D platformer into 2.5D and adds some new levels and features. The shift from hand-drawn art to 3D character models likely rustles the jimmies of some animation purists, but it still looks pretty gorgeous, aside from starring Rayman and his disgusting friends. Get those guys out of here. Meanwhile, Dynasty Warriors 3 Complete Edition Remastered also comes charging in that day, completely trampling whatever semblance of an understanding we thought we had about the difference between a remaster and a remake. Considering the whole 25-year-old PS2 game and its Extreme Legends expansion have been painstakingly remade in Unreal Engine 5 rather than just upscaled, I would call it a remake. But also, who cares what I say about anything? Anyway, both of those games are on all the newer consoles and PC. Still on October 1st, there's World of Magic, Rise of Magic, which is an open-world medieval punk action RPG that has one of the most impressive trailers I've seen in recent memory. This game has it all: magic, combat, orcs, more magic, sexy NPCs, still more magic, sexy trees, and also this guy. Did I mention it's got magic? If you're having a bad day, I implore you, go look up the full gameplay trailer for this, because the closer you look, the more bizarre it gets. That one is on PC. Do you feel the Neve? The Neve for thief? I don't know what Thief is, but I understand all the other words in Ace Combat 8's title. Wings of Thief is the latest in Bandai Namco's arcadey flight sim. And look, it's a given that the titular Ace Combat would look good and have nearly photorealistic jets, but there's absolutely no reason for it to have equally realistic burgers and fries. I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but look at the food in this game. Anyway, that's on Xbox Series, PS5, and PC October 2nd, with early access starting September 29th for those of you who just can't resist those luscious virtual pickles. In the Gears of War universe, they have 26-hour days, 10-day weeks, and a calendar year that somehow ranges from 420 to 460 days long, which is about as chaotic as a gun with a chainsaw on it. So I have no idea when Emergence Day takes place in our Gregorian calendar, but I can tell you that the long-awaited prequel Gears of War E-Day comes out for Xbox Series and PC on October 6th. This will chronicle the early adventures of Marcus Phoenix as he finishes grad school, while he also juggles some complicated interpersonal relationships and unpacks his own generational trauma. I'm just f***ing with you. It's about shooting monsters in the head and grunting. What did you think it was about? On October 6th, Star Wars Galactic Racer lets you go really, really fast in a galaxy far, far away. At a glance, this is a spiritual successor to Episode 1 Racer, but it's more than just pod racing. It features a variety of repulsor lift vehicles, which gives it a dash of Star Wars demolition and also Super Bombad racing to a lesser degree. This is definitely worth keeping an eye on, as it's developed by a bunch of ex-Criterion devs whose past work includes Burnout and Need for Speed. This will have conventional arcade racing, but also a runs-based roguelite story mode, and yes, it's also got Sebulba. That's on Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. Assuming you got your drivers up to date. If your PC drivers are up to date, you know what you get to say? On October 8th, Kingdom Hearts fans can experience the trilogy of mainline entries running natively on Nintendo Switch 2. Not counting a streaming cloud version released for Switch 1, these games have never made it onto a Nintendo console, even though a handful of spin-offs have. So if you game exclusively on Nintendo platforms, these hopefully will fill in some gaps between Chain of Memories and Dream Drop Distance, or maybe it'll just make things more confusing, whichever. Who's enthused by kangaroos and cockatoos? Ooh, great news, because Planet Zoo 2 will let you do what you do on all the consoles that are new except for Switch 2 and also PC. That drops on the 13th, and we have reached the point in writing the script for this video where the coffee has worn off and the madness has begun setting in. If you want to clear some bats out of your belfry, on the 15th, Castlevania Belmont's Curse lets you whip it, whip it good. This is developed by the team behind Dead Cells, who knows a thing or two about making this exact type of game. You can enjoy a succulent feast of wall chicken on Xbox Series, PS5, or PC on October 15th. On October 16th, any retired guitar heroes who want to give the rock band back together should give Sound System a listen. This is one of several games trying to fill the void left by Harmonix and Activision pulling the plug on their respective rhythm game franchises, and this one looks to offer plenty of ways for creators to share custom tracks. That's on PC. If you're more of a jock than a rocker, on the 22nd, you can revive another late-aughts house party pastime with Nintendo Switch 2 Sports Resort. This passes the Wii Sports torch to the newest console, featuring some tried-and-true mini-games like boxing and bowling, plus some newer and weirder ones like thumb wrestling and jump rope. That is exclusively on Switch 2. On October 22nd, Final Fantasy Resonance sounds like somebody forgot the name of Final Fantasy VII Revelation, but it's actually a remake of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, which is a free-to-play mobile gacha game that has since been gutted of microtransactions microtransactions and turned into a console-quality single-player RPG, and it's the first Final Fantasy game to make use of Square's cool HD 2D visuals. Hopefully there are more to come. That one's on PS5, Xbox Series, both Switches, and PC. A day later, there is another gorgeous pixelated game dropping with One Piece Grand Gourmet, a restaurant management sim featuring over 400 characters pulled from the over 11,000 episodes and over 24,000 pages of the long-running pirate anime/manga. That's on both Switches, PC, and mobile. October 23rd sees the release of what would likely be the best-selling game of the year if not for GTA, and that is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4. Then again, that wasn't the case last year because Black Ops 7 dropped the ball and Battlefield 6 picked it up, so you never know. This one is only coming to PC and current-gen consoles, which does include Switch 2, but that means no PS4 and Xbox One versions. If you've ever wanted a version of Mario Party that has less Italians and way more pastels, behold! Hello Kitty, Partyland! It's got over 45 mini-games and board games and tons of colorful Sanrio characters. But will it feature some of the deeper-cut cult favorites like Landry, Gimme 5, or Big Challenges? We'll have to wait and see when that comes to Switch and Switch 2 on October 29th. Also out on October 29th, and probably something a lot more people watching this video actually care about, is Phantom Blade Zero. This intense-looking action game is inspired by Hong Kong cinema, and it follows a dude who's only got 66 days to live, so he's decided to carpe the diem by carving up some demons. I'm not sure why they call it Phantom Blade Zero. There are clearly numerous blades present in practically every frame of gameplay, so I think they should have called it Corporeal Blades Aplenty. That's a stupid name and a stupid joke. I'm sorry. That one's on PS5 and PC. At some point in October, No Rest for the Wicked is supposed to drop, which is the action RPG from the team behind the Ori games, and while it looks like Diablo, expect it to play more like a Soulsborne, but it'll probably be way easier to invite people to play co-op. That one is on Nokia N-Gage, WonderSwan Color, and Ouya. I'm kidding, it's on Xbox Series, PS5, and PC like basically everything else on this list. I'm tired of saying those names. Shockingly, there are a few games coming out in November that don't rhyme with brand cleft motto. On November 5th, there's Crimelight, which looks kind of like American McGee's Alice if it was a roguelike deck builder developed by Vanillaware, which is to say it doesn't really look like American McGee's Alice at all, but it is loosely based on Alice in Wonderland. If you made a Venn diagram of Barbie fans and Grand Theft Auto fans, it would probably look like two circles 10 feet apart, so maybe this is a non-issue, but it might also be a very good goof.
Face it, we're long. Back it up, back it up.
What a great party!
One of the only other games releasing the same week as Grand Theft Auto 6 is Barbie Rewind. And while those games themselves might have been released recklessly as shovelware, the fact that Digital Eclipse put this collection together leads me to believe that this release date is actually deliberately cheeky. Anyway, that one is coming to basically everything on November 12th. On November 19th, Grand Theft Auto 6 is supposedly finally coming out. Fingers crossed it doesn't get delayed again, knock wood, whatever you gotta do. Not even sure what to say about this one, but it's possibly the most expensive piece of media ever made, and it's also likely gonna be the fastest selling entertainment product in history. I'm personally excited for this game. I'm pretty sure you are too, but I'm also bracing myself for it to do things I'm not expecting it to do, and not necessarily in a good way. A lot of time has passed since GTA 5, and I don't know what this game is like. No one's played it. As far as I'm concerned, GTA 5 is a nearly perfect video game, especially for how massive it is. Back when it came out, my former colleague Adam Sessler compared it to a Charles Dickens novel in his review. At first, that sounded kind of stupid, considering a contemporary action-packed AAA open-world video game has a very different appeal than a dry 700-page novel written using 19th century prose, but the more time has passed, the more I've realized it's actually pretty spot on. To say something is Dickensian suggests an epic tale centered around the struggles of working class life that cuts its harsh portrayal of reality with a huge cast of completely over-the-top characters. Up close, it might seem like a bunch of scattered character studies, but viewed as a whole, these overlapping and intertwining threads weave a huge tapestry that presents a depiction of a particular time and place that functions not just as simple entertainment, but as a satirical account of a zeitgeist. It's serious fiction, it's comedy, but it's also a piece of history. As Rockstar Games have gotten more nuanced and grounded in their skewering of real life over the last 25 years, reality has in turn gotten increasingly more exaggerated, especially so in the years since GTA 5's release. How will GTA 6 reflect how much American life has changed since 2013? I'm extremely excited to look into this mirror, but I'm also sort of dreading it in a weird way. But most importantly, I am excited to run around stealing cars and blowing stuff up as one does in a fucking Grand Theft Auto game, which is gonna rip. There are plenty of other games coming out in 2026, but I don't think any of them will come close to dominating the conversation the way GTA 6 is going to, with one exception: The Legend of Zelda: The Ocarina of Time remake. Obviously, it's not gonna outsell GTA 6, but I do think whatever Nintendo does or doesn't do to change such a beloved game is gonna make some waves in some direction. And they know full well how beloved it is, so I don't think they're gonna screw it up, but people really get worked up about special things they grew up with and when someone changes it. That one is on Switch too, but as of making this video, we don't have a release date yet. I hope it comes out this year. Now, like I said at the beginning, this isn't every game, but it's a lot of them. If there's a game that we left out that's worth keeping an eye on, shout it out in the comments below, but don't just say the name like it's something you're reminding me to pick up at the grocery store. What's the game about? Why should people care? What's so cool about it? Recommending stuff to other human beings is one of the greatest joys in life, so spread the love. If you enjoyed this video, we do one just like it each and every month, all about what's coming out in that month, so keep an eye out for those. And of course, for all the latest on every game I just mentioned and tons more, keep it locked to IGN.